anxiety to me does seem like a key node in all of this, meaning, most people, including myself, I don't walk around thinking about my character structure. I don't walk around thinking about how I'm going to behave in a bunch of hypothetical environments. I think about the fact that most mornings I wake up and I feel pretty good, to be quite honest, not as good as I would like to feel. And not necessarily because anything's wrong, but because I think I'm wired to be a little bit more on the anxious side and to predict what's going to happen next and what needs to be done. And so until I'm actually engaging in certain behaviors, that anxiety hums a little bit high for me. The gears turn a little bit faster perhaps than I would like when I wake up in the morning. But once I engage, I feel like the speed of that gear turning matches the demands of life pretty well. And I feel agency, okay? So if you don't mind, could we explore this feeling of anxiety or lack of anxiety that I think people are pretty familiar with within themselves at different times of day and under different conditions? Because to me, it seems like an interesting lens to explore this notion of character structure and defenses. Is anxiety a healthy defense or an unhealthy defense, or does it simply depend on the circumstances?
We all have some degree of anxiety in us, right? We all have some awareness that like we're navigating the world and like not everything is perfect, right? This is not nirvana. So there's some anxiety within us. And the thought is that anxiety can keep us vigilant about the things we should be vigilant about, health and safety, right? But that too much anxiety then becomes counterproductive. And we can look at this in a very regimented way, right? So some anxiety makes sense, right? It keeps us being careful. It keeps you, because you're being careful as you're pulling out of a driveway, for example, right? So, okay, it can be absolutely fine. But let's say you bring something to clinical attention that isn't absolutely fine, right? Let's say I didn't know you and you come in. We have the example that you used before, where you walk into work and there's a group of people that you know well and like, right? Let's say you told me, when I walk in there, I feel very anxious, right? I don't feel like things are okay. So then we would go through it. We said, that's not good, right? Maybe it's impacting your professional life. Things are not going well. Like you really want this to change because it's impacting your life in a negative way. And we say, okay, let's look at that from the perspective of structure of self, right? So first, unconscious, right? Is it that just genetically are you built with just higher levels of anxiety, right? So we could learn, okay, have you always been anxious like this? Has this always been in your life since you were a little kid, no matter what? So we're looking for biological, nature, so to speak, variables. We might also look for things that have happened to you that are lodged in your unconscious mind, right? Is there trauma that you haven't processed, right? That now is underneath the surface, but is spinning off more anxiety, right? Let's say you tell me, oh, it wasn't that long ago you started being anxious. Like did something happen? Like, did you walk into a group of people and, I don't know, you tripped and you felt bad about something, right? And then you get more anxious, right? So are there things going on underneath the surface that are impacting you? Like, let's look into that, right? Because that's the biggest part of the iceberg, right? Then your conscious mind, we could start thinking about, okay, what's going on? What are you actively thinking about, right? So this is where sometimes cognitive behavioral techniques can come into mind. Like, are you thinking like, oh no, I'm scared, it isn't gonna go well, right? Like, are you having thoughts? Are the thoughts then making you more anxious, right? What's going on in your conscious mind, right? I would also be very interested in the defenses around you. So for example, do you tend to avoid, right? Has this been getting worse for 3 months, but you just, your mind wouldn't acknowledge it, right? And by the time you have to acknowledge it, now it's really bad, right? Or do you not avoid and like this just started happening and you want to nip it in the bud, right? So I would be interested in the defense mechanisms, right, that are girding your conscious self. And I would be interested in the character structure. What decisions are you then making? Like, are you going anyway? Right? Are you having trouble so sometimes you avoid? Are you then making decisions that make you late and that causes problems? How does it impact you once you're there? Are you engaging differently with people, doing your work differently? So I want to understand the character structure, and ultimately you understand all of this by probing the self that's riding